We're in the gym here for the in our Family Life Center for a couple months, a few weeks. I know we'll be in and out. Christmas hits on one of the Wednesdays, and New Year's hits on a Wednesday, so it's not every Wednesday. But during the fall holidays, it gives our praise band and our Wednesday praise band, our youth praise band, a chance to use the sanctuary as kind of their practice area, and they do a tremendous job. And a lot of times they practice right after church on Wednesday night, and that's all the practice hardly they get before they have to come right back on Sunday and sing. So this gives them some extended time that they can work on new songs, new music, and I get excited about what they're doing. But it becomes fun coming out here. It kind of changes everything up. I'm kind of down lower where I can see everybody really good. All right. Our series that we're working on, and this is the fourth part of this series, and we will be in this series all the way through till February. So we've got several more lessons to go, but leadership and learning to lead is very important to me. That's part of what we do at All Seasons. It's not just the fact that we want you to get saved or baptized. It's reaching, teaching, and training, and releasing. And that's always been our motto, to reach, teach, train, release people, and so they can do the ministry that they were called. They can lead in their families, they can lead where they work, they can lead whatever they need to do. So what makes our church what it is that we are constantly trying to help you become a better Christian as far as not just, I'm better saved, I'm a better leader. I know what to do. And so any time I get, in fact, we just had a men's meeting, and in that I want to just teach. It's like, let me teach you one little thing. Let me show you one little thing that I can nugget I can give you. So tonight we're on this fourth part of leading well, and that's what we're teaching on, leading well. And so let me catch you up on where we've been and how we got to here. When we talk about leading well, it must begin, as our part one that we studied, must lead myself well. I must first be able to lead myself well, or leading someone else is not going to work. And we spent a good bit of time talking about grace and talking about the gifts that God has given us. We have to reach a point where we can forgive ourselves, accept who we are. We used illustrations about getting in like God showing up at the orphanage one day, and we didn't do anything, but God just simply said, get in. And that's what we were. We didn't choose God. God chose us, and He knew exactly who we were. He knew exactly where we had been. He knew exactly. We make it sound like, God, you don't know me. And God's like, I picked you. You don't realize I've watched you every time you did that thing, every time you lived that life. I was watching, and I still picked you. That should give us such excitement that it's not that God doesn't know us, but it's that He does, and He still chooses to love us. And so first thing that I must do is I must have the ability to lead myself. I can't live my life in guilt. I can't live my life beating myself up every day. You're never going to lead anyone else, because anybody ever tried that? You're kind of like, well, I'm supposed to take care of them. And as soon as you do, as soon as they say something negative to you, or as soon as they're like, I'm not listening to you, it hurts your feelings. And then you're like, what am I doing this? I mean, who am I to lead anybody? They won't listen. Why? Because until I learn to lead myself and be confident in myself, I can't. And we do this as parents, don't we? Many times we'll say, I don't want to tell my kids, Lord, how I lived growing up. I don't want to tell my kids what to do. Well, if you don't tell them, what are they going to do? They're going to repeat. So you have to first learn to forgive yourself, lead yourself, accept the fact that God has chose you to be a leader. The second thing that we learned a few weeks ago was that we must live in it. We must live in it. It's not a one-time fix. It's not I checked the box and I got Jesus, so whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen. That's a bad theology. You hear a lot of people say that. Even preachers will preach that. Whatever's supposed to happen will happen. No, the Bible says the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. It's not just, but many times when we start in leadership, we're like, okay, well, I like myself, but I don't want to engage, or I don't want to stay in this, because if I do, then I got to deal with all the junk. But listen to me. The only way to be a true leader, a good leader in your family life, is that you must stay plugged in. We talked about Jesus as the vine, and we are the branches. And as long as we stay connected to the vine, we will produce what? Much fruit. Much fruit. And whose job is it to produce the fruit? God's. We're not in the dirt. We don't have the nutrients. We don't have the power. We're a branch. We put all, oh, I'm not doing it. Well, you're not supposed to. But you have one main job, and that is to stay plugged into Christ. No matter how many times the devil says, oh, just quit, or it ain't doing any good, or just, you have to have a resolve that says, I may not have figured it out yet. I may still be stumbling along. God may still be pruning me. I may not be. But as long as I stay in Him, I'm going to reach the destiny because He is healthy. He's perfect. He's just trying to get it to flow through me. And sometimes that is a process, isn't it? It's a process. So part 3 we learned last week or a few weeks ago is how to know I belong. So now once I've got myself, I'm plugged in, I'm forgiving myself, I'm living well. So how do I know, Brother Lott, I've got it? How do I know that I'm actually plugged in, living for God? How do I know I'm in it? How do I know it's working? Well, this is how you know. Is that God to us becomes Jesus, but He flows through us, which becomes Spirit. So how do I know, Brother Lott, that I've got it? Well, in part 1 we learned, do you like you? Do you like yourself? Part 2 we learned, do you like Jesus? Part 3, do you like them? Do you like them? So there's some people don't like them. There's some people, it's going to sound crazy, they're not coming to this. If you ask them, are they good Christians? I am a good Christian. Well, here, come to Wednesday night. That's just not my. You know why? They don't like you. No, they don't get me wrong. They love you. They want you to think good of them and we're good. But I don't like you. I don't spend time with you. I don't have to find out. I really don't want to know what all's going on in your life because I don't really want to have to worry about that. And you're going to meet Christians along in the process who love you, but many times don't like you. And to be a leader, you have to get to where you like them. You have to get to where you allow Christ to flow through you. That was our last session. So today, part 4, here we go. To be a good leader, you're going to have to learn that dealing with the stress of leading. You're going to have to learn how to deal with the stress of leading. Because if you're going to love them and Christ is going to flow through you, through His Spirit, and you're going to have all this, is that going to be a fun life? No. Just go ahead and accept it. Look at the person beside you and say, that's not going to be a fun life. Now that sounds crazy because everybody tries to sign you up for Christianity is like, oh, it's the greatest life. And it is. Man, I'm telling you, it's awesome. It is. Just not in this world. Just not here. Because we are the odd thing in the world. We are not the normal. We are the thing that is different. So learning to deal with the stress of leading. So how do we do that, Brother Lott? How do we learn to deal with the stress of leading in our modern thing? Well, let me say it this way. There's two avenues. There's two avenues in which you can walk in leading. There's two avenues in which you can do leading. Number one is simply this. And go with me in your Bibles to Matthew, and I'll show you the scriptures first, and then we'll jump into it. There's two avenues of leading that we have to have. Matthew 14, 13 through 23. Here's what the Bible says. When Jesus heard what had happened, and this means John had been put in prison and things were getting really hectic. Remember what I said? You're doing good, just not in this world, right? So Jesus is doing good. John the Baptist was doing good. But this world was starting to really crank up the pressure. He withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. Now you have to understand that when he talks about the Sea of Galilee, the Sea of Galilee is only 6 miles long. The Sea of Galilee is only about 8 to 10 miles wide on length. So if I hear that you're getting in a boat and you're going to the other side, guess what I can do? I can go all the way around and catch you. And this was Jesus' normal thing when he would say, let's go to the other side. let's try to get away from this crowd to go. By that time, they would hear that he was going and hey, we're wanting some stuff from you. Listen how it happens. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now that's amazing. Because when Jesus reaches the other side, he's trying to get away from the crowd. Anybody ever do this? You're trying to get away, like you're at a family function, let's just say, maybe during Christmas. You're at a family function. And there at the family function, it is getting very advantageous. It's becoming very tense. So you're just like, look, I'm going outside. I'm just going to go hang out on the swing outside. And you go outside and you're thinking, I just want to get away. I just don't want to deal with this. I did not want to deal with Uncle so-and-so. I did not want to deal with Aunt so-and-so. I did not want to deal with, But then all of a sudden, some people walk out of the door like, I thought I saw you come out here. I've been wanting to talk to you. Anybody ever have this happen? Oh, yeah. It will. That's life. And it happens to Jesus, too. We don't want to think, well, Jesus just levitated around and he didn't have these problems. Yeah, if he went to one side of a place, there they are again. It's like, I cannot get away from these folks. And that's just, but his mindset was, okay, I'll heal the sick. I'll speak to them. I'll love them. He had compassion on them. Put down for one of your things here, serving. Serving. And you don't have to pull this up yet. We're still reading. But you will get to this in just a few minutes. But just catch this word that the first thing he chose to do was serve. If I'm in this, if I'm on that front porch and all these people are talking to me and I'm like, oh, I just want to, just a little break. And it's like, can I talk to you? Yeah. And you have a choice. You're like, no, really right now is not a good time. But something in you says, yeah, what's going on? Man, I got this issue and issue. What do you think I should? And you have an opportunity to minister, to serve, to help. You're going to have that option. Now, notice what the Bible says. As evening approached, so he did this for a long time. His disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Jesus replied, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, they said. Bring them here to me, he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. That's an incredible miracle. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men. That's a lot of people on the front porch. When he went to the other side to get away from folks, he did not get away from very many. That's how many caught up with him when he went, because you got to think about how this story goes. He went to the other side and tried to find a remote place so nobody would be there. He ends up getting 5,000 men, not counting women and children, with him in a remote place. So there's a part of him that's like, well, I guess I'm the one that got them here. I guess I'm kind of responsible for them being in this position. And so his compassion kicks in, and he does a miracle. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 baskets full, and not counting women and children. Next verse. And immediately Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. So now here again, this is still another form of leadership. He's done the miracles. He could have said, hey, hang around, we'll make breakfast. I mean, how hard would it? He could have found somebody with a couple chickens and some eggs, and here. But he doesn't do that. He tells the disciples, get in the boat, going back to the other side, while I tell the crowd to go away. Listen, he dismisses the crowd, and after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone. Finally, look at the person beside you and say, finally he was alone. The whole purpose of this story, it's what's so amazing. Jesus did not set this up. We always make it like, and Jesus fed 5,000 by accident. This was not his plan. I'm going to drag all these people around the curve, and they're going to be out here in this desert with me, and they're going to have no food, and I'll have to feed them. No, he just was ministering as the need arose. He was simply leading as he had to lead. And one way of leading was his compassion and his serving. The other way of leading was just simply leading. There's times when you lead in your servanthood, and there's times where you just have to lead. Now, when we talk about servanthood, there are times when we're leading where we have to do what people want us to do. There are times in your leading where you're going to have to do what people want you to do. This is one of the avenues. That's what I said. It's servant leading. When you're servant leading, there's a lot of times, and you will wear yourself out. You can grow weary, the Bible says, in doing well. In fact, it warns us, do not grow weary in doing well. There will never be a point where there won't be a need. There won't be a point where there won't be somebody that needs something to eat, or somebody to pray with them, or something to do. You may be in this room tonight, and that's okay. You will never reach a point where your family is all right. I know you keep saying, I'll be glad when my family. Look at the person beside you and just tell them, say, there'll never be a time when your family is all right. It's going, yeah. My 3-year grown up moved away. That phone still rings. It's still, hey Dad, hey Mom. It's just part of the process of life, is that servanthood leadership will always be needed. That's why Jesus from time to time would just out of compassion do things, because it's like he would see them at times. He said, I see them like sheep that have no shepherd. There was always a need. People who were hurting, people who were sick, people who were in bad situations. And your leadership sometimes will have to pour out of your compassion. Because chapter 3 says, can you love them? If you know that you are a true leader, you have the ability to love them. It's just part of it. But also on the other side of that is leading. Now, leading's different. Sounds like the same. Serving and leading is the same. Serving is when I'm doing what other people, and when I can do what they need. Leading is when I have to do what I have to do. It's doing what I need to do. Jesus at the end of it says, y'all got to go. You got to go. I fed you. I've done. We good? We all right right now? We good? We all right? All right, I'm walking out the door. And you don't look at them and say, is there anything else? Don't do that. See, that's what you want to do, isn't it? When you're leading like that, you're walking. Is there anything else I can do for you? Oh, since you mentioned, and you're thinking to yourself, why did I ask that question? And God is looking at you like, why did you ask that question? I gave you enough grace to get you to here. Yeah, but Lord, there will always be need. Get this in your head. When I leave here tonight, there will be needs that won't be met. There'll be miracles that didn't happen yet. There'll be families that'll still be, I'll be praying for. Situations, diagnosis, that's never going to end. So what do? Well, I'm just going to have to stay up here all night and fast and pray. No, I'm going home to go sleep. Because there reaches a point where you serve, but then you have to have the second part of this, you have to have the ability to lead, which is doing what I need to do. So think about your situations that you're in. Is there something that you feel compassionately pulled to do for that person or for that situation? Yeah, I wanted to get them a gift card, or I've wanted to call them, or I've wanted to. Okay, then do that. But also in that leading, you're also going to have to think from the other side, where is the line to where I have to be able to say, that's all I can do? Because if I go beyond that, now my own spiritual life, my own is starting to break down. Now, this works with kids. This works with your family. This works with everything. Learning to lead is so important. So let me ask you a question. Here's a good question to stop at right now. Would you tend to lead towards serving, or do you tend to lean toward leading? Would you serve or send them away? Be honest now. If you don't know, look at the person beside you and they'll tell you. Oh, you a sucker every time, man. Somebody asks you for something, you just. Okay, see me, what do you think I lean toward? Serving. I'll kill myself serving. Because it's just like, it's like a drug, man. To help somebody is like a drug. To watch their life, even though I'm dying, to watch their life better, it's like, yes, Lord. And then God's like, how you feel? Miserable. God's like, ain't that bad? Because what did you do? Each one of us in this room has a tendency to lean toward one way or the other. And it's okay. So if I'm leaning more toward serving, what do I need to work on? What is it in this room today I need to be able to work on? Well, I'm working on me. Know when to stop. Knowing when I've gone as far. Jesus knew, Jesus was already tired. He got to the other side and there's 5,000 men, not counting women and children. He's like, I mean, this is reality. It's not just me making this up. This is Jesus. The only thing that compelled him was compassion. But what do you think happened after he got everybody fed? No more compassion. Compassion is an emotion. But if you live off that emotion too long, what will happen? You drain yourself. Exactly. Anybody ever cared for somebody and cared for somebody? Maybe you had somebody sick in your family and you're like, I can't get nobody else to stay with them and I'm having to stay every night. But you're going to do it because you can't stand the thought of them being by themselves or doing this. And you got cousins and everybody else. Nobody's showing up. Nobody doing anything. Everybody's ready to bail. And you're just angry and what happens over time? And what do you finally do? You finally just grab that cousin by the neck one day and like, look, dude, I'm telling you, we're through this. And that's not what God wants. But if I drain my compassion, I have only one thing. I can only act out of my emptiness. But if I realize, okay, this is what I'm able to give. Now, what's going to happen if you tell your cousin, look, I can stay Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays? What's your cousin going to say? Look, I can't show up no other day. I'm doing all I can do. What do you tell them? Yeah, it's on you. It's on you. I'm sorry, man. You're going to have to figure it out. You are going to have to figure it out. You are going to have to come up with a new plan. Because the plan of me doing it all, that plan was not a good plan for you. And this is leading. It doesn't sound spiritual, but yet I just read you all the scriptures. It's very spiritual. We just looked at the Bible like, oh, Jesus just went around healing. And he also sent people away. It's like, y'all can go now. I mean, y'all, yeah, I'll see y'all later. I'm done. I'm going up here on this hill, and I'm just going to be alone because I'm drained. And I know I don't have any more left to give without me refueling and spending time with my Father. So in your life, this is the way it goes. So let's look at this understanding of stress. So the question is, how then do we serve and lead at the same time? Well, we just talked about that. How do we serve and lead at the same time? That has to become the question you got to answer. How far do I go with compassion? And where does leading, and the ability to balance that is how high you can go on the chart of being a good leader. If you have no compassion, you won't be a good leader. And if you have all compassion, you'll be a dead leader. I can carry you to pastors. They do all the visiting. They do all the this. They do all that. And those people show up every Sunday and they are just as happy as larks, man. They don't mind. When that pastor finally shows up one day and says, I can't do this no more, guys. I'm having health problems. I'm having issues. What do they say? We need to get this sick pastor out of here, man. We got to get us a healthy pastor. This guy's, he just ain't what I thought he was. You say, how do I know that? Because I've been in that all my life. I may not know a lot about a lot of things, but I can tell you about pastor life. It's the one job, listen, it's the hardest job in the world to get insurance for. It's the highest death rate, early death rate of any occupation there is. You can go work on a power line and be working with zillions of volts of lightning in an orange suit on a thing, and you got a good shot to get insurance. You walk in and say, I'm a 50-year-old pastor, high blood pressure, cholesterol, sugar, flat-footed. Man, I hate it for you. You are not qualified. Why? Because what happens is we teach people, man, you need to be compassionate, and you do. But you have to balance that with being able to draw a line and say, guys, if I go over this, I'm not helping you or me. I am now unhealthy. And so we have to decide, how do we serve and lead? So how do we serve and when do we draw boundaries? When do we draw boundaries? If you are someone who is a leader, that means simply this, that some people in this room think very strongly. Anybody know anybody that thinks strongly? They got a strong personality. It's like, here's the way we're going to do it. You just know they're like a bull in a china shop. They walk into a room, they're going to be leading the show. Why? Because they're just strong, and that's okay. Now, if I have a strong personality, what do I have to have the ability to do then? To balance this. Go to the next slide. The action of leading. So, I don't think they put that slide in there. So, some think strongly. Here's what you have to be able to do, and write this down. If you are a strong thinker, then you have to have the ability to change your agenda. It's going to be hard. For some of you in this room, it's just well to shoot me than for me to have to do what they want to do. That's not even the right thing to do. You're right. The right thing to do was not for those 5,000 people drag their women and children and everything around the curb and go out into a desert and try to find Jesus. That was probably not the smartest thing to do. And Jesus could have said, all right, guys, get in the boat. Let's just go back to the other side. No. There's sometimes you have to change his agenda was, I just want a place to rest. But there's sometimes you're going to be in situations, and let's say you are that person that you're taking care of someone and the cousin won't help or whatever. There's probably going to be a certain season of that you're going to have to suck it up and do days you wouldn't want to do and probably give more than you thought you were going to have to give. You're going to have to stretch that compassion because the other person just isn't just going to step up automatically. You may be in a marriage and you're going to have to be compassionate toward the other person. I'm telling you what, I've had about... Now there's an end, there's a line. But it probably isn't the one you think. If you do life, you're going to figure this out, especially if you did sports. That they always want to push you beyond what you think you can do. That was always the key. You thought, I can't run one, you can do it. I can't do one, you can do it. And what it taught you as an athlete is that you can push yourself beyond what's normal. Doesn't matter if you sign up for the military, they're going to do the same thing. They're going, hey, let's just go take a nice 5-mile stroll. And you've been a couch potato all your life. You're like, no 5. Sure you can. If I yell at you enough and I chew you out enough and we laugh at you enough, you can do it. For long, you're doing what you never thought. You're stretched beyond what you think. Now, the hardest thing is when you have to do it to yourself. Leaders have to have the ability to stretch their own selves without somebody else yelling at them. That's hard. Because you're sitting on the couch, you're like, there's no reason why I should be the one having to do that. There's no reason why you've got all the right in the world to bail. And the only thing that keeps you in the game is compassion. I can't quit there. If nobody else is going to do it, I'll do it. It doesn't matter if it's picking up chairs. It's amazing. Like we had our volunteer party. It's funny to watch who stays and folds up chairs and who does tables. As soon as the party's over, the party's over. But it's like, man, I can't leave without cleaning this thing, helping. Now, some of them, we're gone. God bless you. We'll see you, man. And I can look at it. Now, that's sorry. Just walk out on me and leave me here. No. Why? My compassion is like, man, love you. And I've got to go fold chairs. And in life, that's the way it works. So if you're someone in this room, take note. If you have a strong opinion, if you are a strong-willed person, if you are someone who thinks strongly, the only way you're going to become a better leader is you're going to have to change your agenda sometimes. Now, if you're someone who is feeling strong, you have strong feelings. You're always like, oh, I just can't. You see a dog on the side of the road. We just can't let that poor dog die. Look, we got 6. I don't care. We can't afford dog food now. I can't sleep tonight if I think of that dog. Okay, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to change your giving. You're going to have to be able to draw lines, and it's going to cause you to cry. And Jesus would say it this way, you will always have the poor. That's such a cruel thing to say to a person who can feed 5,000 people. Well, why don't you just feed them all? Why don't you just let money fall out of the sky? No, you'll always have the poor. You will always have people that have needs. You have to be able to draw good lines in the sand. And that's why first what we talk about, you got to be able to lead yourself. You got to know you're in the vine. Why? Because I got to have a good relationship with God to walk away from a bad situation. It's so difficult. If you're a feeling person and you're sitting there, you just want to, and I went through that. When I first moved here pastoring, I was big feeling. And man, I remember going to somebody's house and they were going to cook us something to eat. And I thought they were going to cook us something to eat. They didn't cook it. They just rolled a chicken leg over in a skillet 4 or 5 times. And my wife just looked over at me and she's smarter than me. She just said, I'm not eating that. And I'm sitting there like, at least these people cook for us. We got to. And I'm sitting there, God, please don't give me salmonella. Please don't let me die. And I'm sitting there picking through this bloody piece of chicken. And would you like a nut? No, just, man, that right there, that one chicken leg, that did it, man. That knocked me, whoo, I don't think I could eat another bite. And my wife, when we walked out, she was like, why did you? Well, I didn't want to hurt their family. That's the best they got. Do you know what got me? 2 weeks later, they quit the church. I'm thought, dadgummit, I went over and ate raw chicken at your house. Did nothing but good, and you're going to bail on me? Now, I know y'all don't have experiences like that, but I'm just saying, you're going to have to draw and you're going to have to change your giving, because there's sometimes you just have to say, can I help you cook that? Can we find a little more grease? And, I can't eat that. No, can't do that. You're going to have to, like, I can't go there. Some people are good at this. They cannot do it. And they've got to work on, okay, maybe I need to give a little more. Then there's some of us that, whatever. We got to learn to say, And that's called leading. That's all leading is. It's not complicated. It is very hard. It's not complicated. And the good news is you got the Spirit of God inside of you telling you what you need to be doing. How many times have you done it and then walk away like, I know I wasn't supposed to do that? God was trying to say, I don't know what you're doing right now. This is not. Jesus had the ability to hear God's voice and say, okay. But then at the same time, y'all got to go away because I got no more. That's it. The second thing is this. So I got two avenues of leading. I can either serve or I can lead. Number two, the action of leading. Go with me to John 13, verses 12 through 17. I like this room because I don't have a clock in here. So we're all good. Somebody gonna be. So when we talk about the action lead, John 13, verses 12 through 17, here's what it says. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so. For so that is who I am, or what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Verily, truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than he who has sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. So either way of leadership, whatever leadership you do, there must be action. There's one thing that God cannot stand. It's laziness or inactivity or not doing what you know you're supposed to do. The servant who had the talents. We could go to multiple stories throughout the Bible. He wasn't mad at the one who had 5 and made 10. He wasn't mad at the one who had 2 and made 4 or 5. The one that had 1, what did he do with it? He buried it. And he wasn't mad that he lost his money because he dug it back up and gave it to him. So if it was one of us, we'd probably just said, well, at least he didn't lose it. But the master was mad. Because he said, you could have at least given it to the bank and I could have had some interest, but you didn't do anything with it. In fact, in Revelations, he talks about spewing out a certain group. And what is that group? The group that's not hot nor cold, but they're what? They're lukewarm. They're a group that just doesn't get on fire about nothing. And he says, those people, I spew them, and they just make me sick. That's strong language, but what he's trying to say is, Jesus in doing this, washing the disciples' feet, he illustrates to them there must be action, whether you're leading or serving. Always be leading in some way. Don't just sit there and think that I'll just do nothing and it'll go away. How many problems do we ever bump into? We're just like, I just don't want to do anything. I'm afraid I met. And our inactivity creates many times results that we didn't want. But we have to live with them because we just didn't do something. I have a preacher friend years ago, he said it this way, and he talked about we have the keys of the kingdom, and you lock and unlock, and you can bind and And I used to, next question comes to your mind, especially as a young person, I say, well, what am I supposed to bind and what am I supposed to loose? Yeah, that's a good question. He just smiled and said, Tim, if you lock it and it ain't working, unlock it. And if you bind it and it ain't working, let that thing loose. What he was saying was, in life, you're going, but don't do nothing. Don't stand there with the keys and do nothing, Tim. God would rather you try something and fail. At least you're going to learn. I think that's why he loved the disciples that he picked. At least Peter's cutting somebody's ear off. I mean, at least he's trying. God doesn't look at him and say, that's it, Peter, you're out. No, he's like, man, you're like a rock. Yeah, you're okay. Why? Because it's in your activity, even though you may sink, at least you got out of the boat. At least you're trying. And God can work with trying. There's times I lead, and I'm like, God, I don't know if that's the way I should have handled that. And God's like, you're trying. Just don't sit here and just go to bed thinking about it and hope it works out. Don't do that. Be active. Let me give you some ways you can be active in our life. We'll call it washing feet. Here's ways you can wash feet. And I'd wanted to, one of these nights, to have a foot washing in here, so y'all better be glad we didn't do that. I have some weird thoughts sometimes, so that was like, it's like, okay, everybody pick a partner. You'd be looking around like, that looks clean. That looks like, yeah, that don't look like I eat it with fungus too bad. I think. But let's just talk about washing feet, because what he was showing was an example. The example is this, is that in their custom, you walked into a house. When they walked into a house, because of their sandals, because of where they were walking, cattle, everything, there's all kind of stuff, dust. So it was tradition that you don't want to bring that into a house. So you would have stopped and you would have taken off your shoes and you would have sat there or stood there, and a servant at the door, whoever was the lowest one at the door, lowest one in the house would have been the one that was in charge of. So you knew whoever washed feet, they're new. That's a new servant. That's somebody who ain't moved up the ranks yet. But that day when they walk in, nobody washed anybody's feet. They all walked in thinking we're all equal. None of the disciples thought, well, I'll wash Jesus' feet. Nobody thought of that. So Jesus uses this moment, and he gets up and he gets the towel that's sitting there and the water that's sitting there, and he starts washing all the disciples' feet. And what he's saying is, looking at this situation, I saw the opportunity to serve, to do something. I could have sat here and done nothing, but I saw the opportunity to do something. So I didn't look over and say, well, somebody needs to do that. No. Judas, you're the sorriest one in here. You need to be washing everybody's feet. He doesn't do that. He says, no, it needs to be done. And so when he does it, he looks at them and says, who's the biggest one in this room? Me. Well, he wasn't being joking. He said, I'm the master. I'm the teacher. I'm the one every one of y'all are following. And yet I'm the one that got up and washed your feet. And he said, listen, it's a good example because serving is what you always are supposed to do when you have opportunity to do it. Every opportunity you have, if it doesn't hurt you, like I said, if it doesn't cross a boundary where I just can't do it, we just talked about that, we're not going back to that. But if it doesn't mess with my leadership, if it isn't going to kill me, and if it's an opportunity to serve, I should always be the one. And here's how you know this, because the greatest one that's ever in a room will always be the one that sees that. If you want me to tell you who the biggest person is in every room, it'll always be the one who sees the need and goes and meets it. That's always the biggest person in the room. So if you walk into a dinner, the one who stands back and, hey, you go ahead. The one who opens the door for somebody, let them go on in front. Somebody who lets you go first in the buffet knowing there ain't but 2 pieces of chicken left, and you're like, man. But I'll be all right. I'll eat more string beans and I'll eat more of this. Why? Because every opportunity I get to serve, I take it. And that is how we do it. So here's, let me give you some opportunities. When you have the opportunity, encourage somebody. You want to wash their feet? You see them and they're going through stuff? Come on, you gonna make it? I don't know. Man, I believe you gonna make, encourage them. Write an encouraging thought. Lord, if you can't write nothing, I can't think of that. Go buy a card. Lord, they make people, smart people, write them things all the time. Saved my marriage for 30-something years. I don't know what to say. This card says it the best, baby, and I signed it. It says exactly what I thought. You don't have to be brain surgeon. Just encourage someone with words. Visit them. Just visit them. Man, I wonder why so-and-so's doing. Well, get in your car and go check on them. Yeah, but they may not. What did I tell you? Inactivity isn't the answer. Be active. What's the worst that could happen? Why are you here? I was just thinking about you. Well, I'm fine. Okay, well, I'm glad you're fine. I don't have to think about you no more. Compassion, gone. Leadership, kicked in. We're going back home. It's okay. Give public praise. If you find somebody that's done something good, if they worked hard at something, praise them. Just say, man, I saw you. If I see our kids, if I go watch them at the bands and doing the stuff they do, or I see some kid walking through with their, whatever, I'm like, oh, look at you. You could tell some little boy, your little girl, man, before long you're going to be as tall as I am. What else? It don't take much. It doesn't. But if you walk by them, you've lost an opportunity. Know their families. It helps, and it's hard for me now. I try to keep up with everybody, but I'll see somebody. I'll say, "Hey, how's your grandmother? How's this going? Just like right now, one of our people, Tommy Kinsey, she's having a baby right now. So it's like that's in my mind while I'm up here speaking, because I'm thinking about the family. I'm thinking about, because that's part of my family, and so it's just being thoughtful, being, and it doesn't mean you're going to hit it right every time. And here, let me say it another way: spend time with them. I had someone just a while ago just look at me and say, "Hey, we live close by." I said, "Man, come over, play hearts." I said, "I don't know when I'll be there, but when I'm there," I said, "Come over, we'll play hearts." Spend time with people. Find something you like to do, they like to do. Don't do something that you hate. I hate when we do that. Well, then tell them, I don't like that. Use leadership. Kick in. Leadership. I don't like that. Well, let's do something we do like. Okay. That's like me and Elise. Elise does not fish. Elise does not hunt. Elise does not do a lot of the stuff that I do. And yet, it was our anniversary. Tomorrow morning is our anniversary. It's 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Elise is headed to South Georgia. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm headed toward Eupora. And so we decided last night, hey, let's go. Well, that's a whole ordeal. Because remember now, she doesn't like a lot of what I like. So we first decided, what do you want to do? Let's go eat. Where do you want to eat? I'm thinking Captain D's, Applebee's, Mackie D's. We end up at a pizza place, Soul Shine Pizza, somewhere in Jackson or something. So she gets pizza, I get wings. We happy. We found a place, got a little bit of everything. What movie we gonna watch? Yeah, I'm thinking Gladiator 2. She's thinking some Hallmark movie that we know how it ends. We're coming home. Hey, that was awesome. So what were we doing? We were spending time together, just deciding to be together. Let's figure it out. Let's create a memory. Not every relationship is just like, oh man, we just hit it off. I mean, there's people I hang out with, they like to fish, they like to do all the stuff I do, they like to eat raw oysters, they like, Shazam! But it's okay. It just means when I'm with someone else, let's find what you like to do. Maybe there's something you do, I do, let's do it together. Okay. Pray with them. That ain't hard. Just if they have a need, say, hey, let's just pray right now. And they may give you that look like, look, I'm not going to go crazy on you, start slapping your head or nothing. I'm just going to hold your hands. Let's just pray. And just for them to hear your words, Lord, bless them. Lord, touch them. God, I speak over their body. God, for them to hear that word coming out of you into them, you don't realize what that does to somebody. And it releases God. We're two touching anything and agreeing. Apologize to them for failing them sometimes. I fail people all the time. There's one on my mind right now. I don't have their number, and I've just let it slip and haven't got it and haven't checked on them. And that bothers me. I've got to apologize as soon as I see them. I'm like, I am sorry. I have not. Look at me. I fail. I guarantee you when Jesus walked away from that crowd, there was part of that crowd like, I can't believe he just sent us away. All we want to do is hear him preach, and here he goes, telling us to leave. You're never going to make everybody happy. It's never going to happen. Apologize when you fail. Be honest about your journey. I hope the one thing that people like about my speaking and teaching is that I'm just brutally honest. I mean, I'm joking, laughing, crying at the same time, and I'm like, this is my life. This is not just, let me tell you what happened in 1587 to... No, this is real life. This is trying to go on a date night with my wife. This is life. But it's a beautiful life if you learn to lead well. Number 3, be the difference maker then. Decide that I'm going to be the difference maker. In Romans 8, 31 through 39, here's what it says. Romans 8, 31 through 39. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? So as I'm doing this life, the solace that I have is that God will always make up the difference. If I give somebody $10, somebody's going to come along and bless me with a meal or something. It's ever failed. I always say it this way, and I don't try to be God will not allow himself to owe you. God will never reach eternity and say, you know, I owe Tim some stuff. God will bankrupt heaven because he's a giver. And that's what Paul understands. He said, God's not going to be indebted to you. God, when you're giving and doing, if he wouldn't spare his own son because he loved you, don't you think he's going to make up the difference on the other stuff in your life? Who will bring any charge against us? If somebody comes along and says, well, you're not doing enough, you're not helping enough, you're not good enough, who chose you? God. So if somebody says, well, you're not doing enough, well, blame God. This isn't my program. I was picked by God. So if I've got somebody, it is God who justifies. It's God who says, you're okay. Who then is the one who condemns? Well, you aren't somebody that needs to be doing it. Look what you did in the past. Look what the person you were. Look how bad you were. Paul was a killer of people, imprisoned them. I mean, you're not qualified to preach, but this is what Paul says. Who then is the one who condemns you? No one. Jesus Christ, who died, more than that, who was raised from life, is that at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. Who shall separate us then from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or dangers or sword? As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. I told you it's not an easy journey. I wasn't lying. It's an awesome journey. It's the greatest journey in the world. But it costs. It's hard to love people when they ain't loving you. It's hard to be compassionate when nobody else is compassionate. And I look in my life at certain times and I'm thinking, and it's the weird things that's hard. I remember once years ago, me and Elise bought these hippie costumes for our Halloween thing. Still, this story still sticks with me after all these years. It's one of these moments God taught me a lot. We bought these hippie costumes. We started walking out. Elise is looking at the receipt. And the lady just accidentally, she just rung up one of them and didn't ring up both of them. So, what's your thought? I got a deal. That's what I'm screaming, bro. That's my thought process. God, you are good. You know I didn't have that extra $40. Thank you. I keep walking. Guess what kicks in? Holy Spirit, conviction. Tim, is that right there, $40 costume? Is that what you're gonna sacrifice our relationship with? I'm thinking, God, I didn't do it. You got to understand, I'm having this conversation. $40 is a lot of money back in the day. It was like, God, I didn't do this. This is a blessing. You just let her overlook it. Tim, you can't do that. Yes, I can. Nobody. She said, I knew you wouldn't make it out of this parking lot. So I walked back in there and I looked at that lady and I said, ma'am, and I'm going to be honest with you. You're thinking the whole time, okay, I'm going to walk in. Look, you made a mistake. Oh, don't worry about it. It's just no big deal. I'm thinking, okay. I'm hanging on to the blessing. Got back. She said, oh, thank you so much. And she whoop. That'd be $44.27. In our lives, and I think about that all the time because in the process of time, I have to trust that God is going to make up the difference, not me. And that's hard. It isn't hard living a Christian life. It's hard trusting in a Christian life. It's hard trusting. I mean, it's good to not have to have guilt. It's good. All that part is good. That's easy. But trusting it, that takes leadership. As it is written, for your sake we have death all. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. Boy, that's a wonderful illustration. Welcome to the Christian life. That's who we are. Next verse. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth nor anything else in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. Listen to what it says, verse 38. That it? That's verse 37. That's it. Already thirsty now. My bad. So here's the two things. If you want to be a difference maker, here's what you're bringing when you decide to be this lamb for the slaughter, but trust in God. Here's what you give. To the people around you, you bring, number one, security. You bring security. That sounds strange, but that's what you bring. So if you're working for someone, I remember years ago when I was working and buggy pusher is all I was. And the manager would look at me after a while, after I'd worked several things and done. He said, Tim, come get in the truck with me. We got to take the money to the bank or whatever. We got to drop off the deposit. Man, I was like, oh yeah, to not have to push buggies, go sit in the air conditioner truck and ride across town and go. But what it was is he was starting to see things in my life, and he's watching how I did things, and he wanted to make sure he didn't lose me. And what happened is over time, I was able to get keys to things, be overstuffed. Why? Because what I brought to his life was security. I can trust them. Who looks at you every day and says, I can trust them? They won't quit on me. They're not bailing. They're not going to give up. They're not quitting. They are the most secure thing other than God. They're the most secure thing I got. Of all the things in our society now, the thing that creates the most problems is the insecurity that people feel. Children not sure if their parents will stay together because nobody else's parents are staying. So they look at their mom, well, y'all going to make it? Are y'all going to be together? Are y'all going? It's an insecure world. And to be a true leader, first thing you bring is security. You don't get up on Sunday morning worrying if Pastor Lott's going to be at church. Don't even cross your mind. If you showed up and there was a note on the door, or somebody stood up in the pulpit the first Sunday and said, hey, Pastor Lott quit today, would you say, well, kind of figured that would happen? No. No. Because leadership brings security. The second thing that leadership brings is significance. Because I'm secure now, I can stretch and I can trust and because I can't fall but so far. If I've got that secure place, if I've got a net under me, then I'll try things and do things that I wouldn't have tried before. If I'm not sure how it'll end, or I'm just not sure somebody will be there, and not sure somebody cares, then I won't try things. Let me give you these and I'll wrap us up. I want you to do a rating for me. Do this rating and so the rating goes from 1 to 5. Think about this. 1 being, that's not me, all right? Definitely not me yet. To 5 being, that's definitely me. So somewhere in between, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And try to keep up with it in your mind. So you're going to have 5 of them. Try to keep it up with it in your mind. Give yourself a 3, a 4, a 5, a 1, whatever you decide. Number 1, I can honestly say that I love people. I can honestly say I love people. So what would you fit in that? 1 to 5. If you're like, sometimes you're probably a 2 or a 3. People get on my nerves real quick. Okay? But if you say, no, I love people. Now, I do get tired. They wear me down, but I love people. Okay, you may be a 4 or 5. All right, number 2. My greatest desire is to serve and help people. My greatest desire in life is to serve and help people. Now, be honest. If you had to look at your checkbook, if you had to look at your credit card, look at how many people have been invited to your house lately. Is that the truth? Or is it, really serving people is not the highest on my priority. Maybe serving my family, but not people. So where would you fit in that? Number 3. I always make time for those that I have influence with. I always make time for those. In other words, if somebody calls you and says, hey, can I come over? I need to talk to somebody. What will you say? Man, not tonight. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm tired. Or it's like me, look over at my wife. I got to get up. What? So-and-so's coming over. Did you tell them? I know it, but I need to. If something happened to them tonight, I would never forgive myself. So do I make time for others that I know I have influence with that, man, I need to spend time, or I need to send them a letter. I need to call them. I need to go over to their house. Do I make time? Number 3 or number 4. Do I pray regularly for people? Not for my own stuff. Do I pray regularly for people? Number 5. If you were to ask people around me, people do see me as a servant. If you were to ask people around me would say, yeah, that's a servant. Do they see you as someone who serves? How'd you do? Don't tell me. You'll go screaming it out. I got a 4. No. A 20 would be good. If you could reach a 4 in all of those, working hard to where you can say, yeah, I'm a 4. I'm not saying a 5. I'm not saying we're Jesus Christ. We're going to get to, I think of people all the time. But if we can hit that around 20 mark, that's good. It means you're headed in the right direction. That means stuff is flowing through you. That's good. It means you're producing fruit that others won't. It means that you have compassion mixed with leadership. You have a good balance. In our lives, it's good, like we started out, learning to lead myself, learning to love what I am, learning to be in Christ, having that relationship strong. But eventually that relationship has to turn outward. Serving can only work with others. Leading can only work if I'm leading others. And so tonight, as we come to the close of this one, understand what we need to realize tonight is simply this. Am I dealing with the stress of leading well? If I were to ask you tonight, after what we've done, if I were to say, are you handling the stress of leadership in your family, at where you work? Are you handling it well? Or are you I done got way off in my feelings. Or I done got so cold, I just tell them what I think. They can do what they want to do. But we as Christians have to be somewhere in that middle. There's times to tell someone, nah. And then there's times to say, let me help. And healthy Christians just simply know when to do which. Will you pray with me? Father, God, thank you for tonight. When we walk out of this building, how we lead not only has the opportunity or the possibility, but it will change a life. It's not a maybe, it will. The person that I'm willing to be compassionate with, the person that I'm willing to just say, hey, hold on, and tell them the just truth. The way that I'm able to love, regardless which way I do it, which way I lead, if I can love them and they know that I'm loving them and I know that I'm just doing the very best that I can. God, that's what we're called to do. We're called to let you live through us and let your fruit come through us. So, Father, let love and joy and peace and gentleness and long-suffering and kindness and meekness and temperance, God, let people see it every day. And let us be compassionate to people to the point to where we get tired. And when we get tired, that's okay. Because sometimes we have to say, hey, that's all I got. I need to go refill. I need to take a break. I need to go sit in my recliner and reload. It's okay. Because God, this is how you've called us to lead. As a servant and a leader, caring for people because you care for us. Knowing that whatever we give, you will always make up the difference. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys. Go give that devil fits.